Jackson and extended her hand. Fortunately, he had been coached on this, so he knew to take her hand and offer a bow followed by a kiss to the hand. "You look lovely today, Your Majesty," Jackson said. She did. It was true. He could see where Gianna got her fiery red hair from. But it wouldn't have been something he would normally have said. It was just what he had been taught was expected. He noticed his mother nodding, so he must have gotten it right. King Albert said, "Oh, enough of this. Please sit. But a word of advice, my young baron, if I may. Careful with the compliments to the queen, or you may make others jealous." The words were delivered with a smile upon his face, but Jackson was completely lost. He wondered for a moment if he had gotten something wrong, and retraced the social lessons he had received. Just like any fighting technique, he replayed it in his mind and decided he had done it correctly. So he was at a loss, especially when the queen put her hand upon the king's arm while saying, "Albert, behave, or you will embarrass them." Before Jackson could apologize, he heard Gianna suck in her breath deeply. Both his mother and hers were then looking at the princess, as she poured a great deal of empathetic emotion into the word, "Mom." For a second, he couldn't help but remember conversations between his own mother and Mira. Jackson was nervous, and if he had possessed a spidey sense, he was certain it would have been tingling right then. This was definitely a minefield, and the worst part was, he didn't even know what he had done to cause this. Jackson started to apologize, but the king just laughed. "Oh, no, I think I'm going to like you very much. And it isn't me I was warning you about offending." A moment later, his pleasant smile disappeared. It was an extreme change, but Jackson didn't think it meant the smile had been fake. He had seen this from his parents before. Dad could be just dad, or he could go into what Mom called attorney mode and be all business. Now the king was obviously done being a father, and had shifted into king mode. "I do have to ask you, though, what are you doing starting fights with minotaurs in my city?" And there it was. Jackson wasn't really sure if he was upset or still testing. The question was asked in a rather deadpan voice, but maybe that was just compared to how the man had sounded a moment ago. "Your Majesty, I heard screams from inside the shop. It sounded like a woman. I simply asked what I would have wanted a man outside to do if it had been my mother or sister inside screaming, and then acted accordingly." Jackson felt defensive as he spoke. His hands clenched into fists, and he could feel his heart starting to beat faster. Inside his head, he heard a soft voice whisper, "This is a different kind of battle." Jackson tried to remember what Daiichi had taught him about relaxing. He forced himself to slowly expel the air in his lungs through his nose. Then he stretched his hands to keep himself from making fists. The king, queen, and a military officer who Jackson didn't recognize were all staring at him. Then the king laughed. "See, Sophia? I told you I would like this boy. He doesn't apologize for doing what he believed was right. He just states the facts." "I know. It reminds me of another young man I used to know. I miss that young man sometimes," the queen said. Jackson grinned. If his father and mother had been looking at each other like that, Mira would have undoubtedly said, "Get a room." But while Miramar was more relaxed than Albia, it certainly wasn't as lax as he was used to back home. Princesses simply didn't speak to the king and queen like that. His mom didn't care, though. She had a smile on her face, but she said, "We really shouldn't encourage him too much. I'm as proud of my son as any mother could be, but I also prefer him in one piece." Sophia leaned forward and reached across the narrow space that separated the two, to place her hand upon his mom's arm. "As a mother, I can share that feeling," My sons keep me up at night. The things they will do. Now, Lady Amiri, you can certainly agree we don't want to coddle your son. He showed a great initiative and concern for the people around him. I would much rather have allies who were more worried about the people in my country than those who were worried about the niceties